Hey guys, what's up? So yeah, doing this in my bedroom. Whew. Sorry, didn't have any other location to do this in. Couldn't do it downstairs. There's stuff going on there. Didn't have any other room, so we're gonna have to do this in here. Deal with it. But I finally am happy to say that we're going to do a freaking sword review. I am way behind in getting these done, so I'm glad that I was able to finally get on it. And what we're going to be talking about is this piece right here. You guys might remember this is one of the latest ones that LK Chen sent me. In fact, this is the latest one that they sent me. This is the Qi Ja Yao Dao, and I'm pretty sure I completely butchered the name. Qi Ja Yao Dao, or the General Qi Waist Saber. Now, before I get into the particulars of this sword in terms of, its, particular stats, its measurements, how well it functions and all that, I'd like to talk a little bit about the history of it because I find it kind of interesting. So, you're going to notice that this piece looks similar to certain other swords that were out at the time. Namely, it's similar to like certain goose quill sabers. It's similar to what is known as Wodao that were used during the Ming Dynasty. And this particular piece is no exception in terms of weapons that were based on Japanese swords. In fact, this particular piece was basically commissioned by General Qi during his time dealing with pirates and raiders in the northern provinces. That's actually General Qi's claim to fame, at least one of them, him repelling pirates. Usually they focus primarily on the fact that he was dealing with Japanese pirates, but the truth is it wasn't just the Japanese he was dealing with. There were more native pirates that he was dealing with as well, but he was dealing with Japanese enemies too, and their weaponry helped to inspire the shape of this one. There's been a lot of back and forth between China and Japan in terms of weapon technology, in terms of culture, certain details in native life. You'll see a lot of crossover. And it's kind of funny that depending on the time in history, like who's borrowing from whom and who's claiming, ownership of it. But just to be clear, there's been a lot of back and forth, and this is a good example of the cultural exchanges that tended to happen between the two nations. So what's interesting about this piece is that even though it was inspired by Japanese arms, which tend to be, katana or, tachi, which usually are used in two hands, this particular piece was made for one. And you have to remember that China, quite frankly, liked using a lot of their waist weapons or their waist sabers or dian tended to be one-handed. Particularly the sabers, because even during the Ming Dynasty, there were troops that were paired with a shield in their left, and then you got this on the other hand, and that's not exactly conducive for two-handed use. But the blade shape, as we're going to see here, is very similar to a Japanese katana, right down to the way the tip is designed. Now, granted, this is a bit wider. It's a little bit wider than your typical Japanese katana, but not so much so that it would be out of place in, say, somebody's collection. If, I could imagine, if this blade was mounted with Japanese fittings and a slightly longer handle, some people wouldn't look twice at it. It'll be like, oh, it's just another katana. But upon close inspection, you can see that this is not the case. So, this, among other similar looking weapons, and especially with goose quill sabers and willow leaf sabers, tended to be what the military used during the Ming Dynasty. The New Weido, also known as the oxtail saber, which is what a lot of people associate with Chinese martial arts, didn't come until much later, and that was mostly a civilian's weapon or a citizen's militia's weapon. That's not what the military used. So this is more in line with what the military would have, particularly in General Qi's personal army. These would be the weapons that they would be supplied with. So now let's take a look at this particular one and let's talk about some of the specifications. The website happens to state that the weight, sword only weight, is around 850 grams or about a pound 14 ounces. My measurements were pretty much the same, give or take a couple of grams. It really wasn't that much different. Blade length was 27.4 inches or 69 centimeters. 69 and about 69 and a half centimeters. Handle length is 18.4 centimeters or 7.24 inches. Again, my measurements were pretty much the same. In fact, I'm kind of just going off the website because there really wasn't much difference between my measurements and that. Weight, the length. Total length is 35, which is typical for a weapon like this, military grade weapon like this. The point of balance is about 12 centimeters or 4.7 inches from the handguard. I can tell you right now, and I'm balancing it right here on the scabbard. This is a very lively weapon in one hand. It was made for one-handed use, and it feels very light. There is enough mass presence so that you can tell that if you swing, it's going to do damage. But in terms of its balance, its handling, its weight, it is a very lively weapon, very quick. I have no problem getting the point where I want, the blade where I want. It's just, you know, it's very lively, and I do like that about this particular sword. The scabbard, let's go over that for a bit, and then we'll go into the blade itself. As you can see, this is very similar to the other dowel that they had that I really, really liked. In terms of the faux leather that is used to wrap the wooden core. We got the mild steel, which is being used for the fittings. The fittings are rather plain in that there isn't much embellishment, but there's still enough detail to make it look fairly nice. Very uniform, solid. There's no sliding or shaking and all that. I've had this thing for a while. The weather has changed around here, and yet I have not noticed any, anything changing, no slipping. The glue, any glue or anything that they were using to keep this in place is holding, which is much better than blades I've seen in the past, where after a while things would start sliding. So yeah, they've been maintaining their quality control, and I really do appreciate that. I know I keep mentioning it, but yeah, they've come a long way in terms of the quality control, and it shows as well as in this blade as well. Fittings also nice and solid, nothing wobbling. I've been using this thing for a while, and as you'll see with the footage later, the fact that this thing is still holding strong is a testament to how well built this is. The handle itself is pretty simple, wooden. I'm not exactly sure what type of wood it is, but it's nice and solid. The wrapping is nice and tight. There's been no loosening of it. It doesn't slip or move around or anything like that. The end cap here is, again, nice and tight, loose, no problems there, even with constant use. And you can see at the bottom there that the blade is actually peened to it, so it's all nicely locked in place. And so unless you're doing some major like abusive work on this, sword's not going anywhere. I have noticed there's a little bit, just a teensy bit of a gap between the blade and the like where you see the fitting is for the handguard and the blade, but it is so small, like it's barely noticeable, and especially at the price point, it's really not, like, I've seen worse. I've seen much worse. It's still, it's almost flush. It's just a little bit of a gap, but not disturbingly so. And again, for the price point, I don't think it's that bad at all. It's not, that bad of a compromise. It's a very utilitarian looking sword, especially this particular piece. As the blade that I happen to have the second option, which is not the folded steel option. I believe that the steel, and I'm going to look it up real quick. The type of steel they use is apparently called GB60S12. It's basically a high carbon steel with manganese mixed in. It's apparently comparable to AISI SAE 5160 steel. So The little bit I know about that particular type of steel is that it tends to be pretty resilient and holds an edge pretty well, which is pretty much a testament to the cutting footage that you'll be seeing with this blade soon. Right now, let's just test the edge, and that's going to be significant down the line. As you can see, it's cutting in with, you know, little issues. Nicely shaving sharp. Oh, that one ripped. The first one was a cut. That one was not a cut. That's a cut. That's a cut. All right, let's do this one piece here. Yep, cut right in there. So as you can see, it's maintained its edge pretty well. And that's good considering that I've already test cutted with this. I'm recording this after me going back there and cutting up a few targets. So let's get into that footage so you can see how well it did, how well I did, because it's been a while since I've been out there and started cutting stuff up. And then we'll talk about it afterwards. So yeah, here's the footage. Check it out. As you can see, before I go further, I know the lighting could be better, but the edge, this is the beginning of the test. The edge is undamaged. No chipping, no rolling. Everything is fine. We're going to put this through its paces, do a few cuts, and then check out the edge afterwards. So, here's my first cut, which was not the greatest cut in the world. I am a bit rusty, but as you can see, the blade went right through. You'll notice, by the way, that the stand is a bit elevated, and that was also, it was better than the first, not the greatest. Anyway, you'll notice the stand is a bit elevated. That's because I wanted my targets to actually be more at upper chest and head height instead of usually at waist. Here's my son trying, and it went completely through cleanly. By the way, he's been getting better at doing cutting, as you can tell. His form's been getting better, and he actually, those first two bottles he did ended up being cut better than when I did mine. So, but this one is more of an upward stroke. And while I need to get better at doing my upward cuts, that one was a much cleaner cut than the others. As you can see, these are softer bottles. You can probably tell I drink a whole lot of Ito NT. Here is my first hard shell bottle. And that actually sliced right through the top of the bottle, right through the cap, which impressed me because, once again, it showed how good the edge was. I'm sorry, by the way, that I am not using tatami mats. Still haven't been able to get any yet. But I figured between the soft and hard shell bottles, and that was another hard one, it still should show how hard the edge is, how resilient it is, you know, how well it cuts. I think these are decent enough targets for the task. I'm not using fruit or anything like that because I know that's really crap. So here I'm actually doing thrusting. It went right through, though I could have pulled it out a little bit quicker so that didn't happen. But as you can see, it doesn't have any problems going through the target. There was no resistance. And then I just do another lazy cut and goes through nicely. The edge really held up with all these tests, and as I warmed up more and more, it just got a whole lot easier for me to slice through and just easily cut them. Another nice clean edge, much better than the first couple I did. Now this cut, I did that as sort of like a slicing cut, not my best, but it still sliced through. And then finally there's my son again, showing how easily it is to cut with this particular weapon. Right. So yeah, it cuts pretty well. It cuts really well, in fact. Like after I warmed up a bit and really started getting into it, yeah, this thing was able to slice the bottles with no problem. However, that's not the full story on this blade. Nope. No. See, when I got this sword, I was also given a request by LK Chen's company. See, they wanted me to not just review it, you know, and test it out, do drills, stuff like that, you know, show off its edge. I was asked to do a little bit of abusive testing on this. Now, granted, it told me not to go overboard, but they're like, you know, just test its toughness, test its durability. So I did.
You knew this day was coming. Ah!
I've done my fair. This is the closest practice sword we have to this.
Ready?
I hate it. I hate it so much.
All right, I'm coming in close to show off the blade.
Okay.
Show the edge. As you can see, there's no damage. There is a slight roll right, well, a slight warp right there. See there? Where my nail is? But otherwise, no other major damage.
I can't see it on the camera, but I can see it on...
If you look carefully, you'll see it like right about there.
Yeah, I see it in real life.
A little bit of a warping, but nothing. Considering the hacks that I just did, pretty good.
It made me wince.
I told you it would. Yeah, that cutting stand needed to go down. It was on its last legs, and I figured before I build a new one, let me use it one more time with this thing. And let me just say before I fully get into the results here that the main part of the stand was made with treated wood. It wasn't just a 4x4 block. That wood was treated, so it was hardened. So that made the abusive test even more freaking abusive, okay? And I was wincing as I was whacking away at it with this, because you're not supposed to be using swords like an axe. But they asked, so I complied. And I'm really surprised at how well this thing was able to stand up to it. You saw that I was still able to cut paper with this. So it was able to maintain its edge. Mostly. There is some damage. If you want to look a little bit closer, and I tried to show it in the footage, if you look here, I'm going to try to put my nail close to the main spots. There's a spot here that if you look, first of all, there's some scratches, but scratches are that's common with cutting and testing with blades. That's not really a problem. The problem is there's a little bit of a bend in the edge right there, and I don't know how well you guys can see that, but there's a little bit of a bend, just a bit of a warp right there. It's a little C-shaped. Not horribly so, but enough that I can see it with my naked eye. Then there's a little bit, again, I don't know how well you can see, right here, some chipping. A teensy little bit of chipping right there. Now, that's with me hacking. You saw what I was doing to that thing. I really dug deep in there. And the fact that I get a little bit of chipping and a little bit of a bent edge there after what I did is a testament to the heat treat of this thing. I expected worse, especially since I'm doing this on treated wood. I was just like, oh God, I'm destroying the sword. No, for the most part, the edge stood up. Is it going to need a little bit of repair? Yes. But that's why these are called abusive tests. You're not really supposed to be doing this with a sword. Don't try this at home, please, with your own weaponry. Another thing that I think is a testament is the fact that I was whacking at that wood and everything is still tight. As you can see, nothing is loose, nothing is rattling, and I was whacking away at that freaking stand, as you saw. And it's mostly fine. Like, if you still needed to use this sword for its intended function, at least in the past, it would still be able to get the job done. Earlier when I was doing some proper test cutting and I was like, stabbing with, the bottle, granted it was a softer bottle, but the tip is not rolled. It's still pretty sharp. And even this bent part there, the edge is still there. I mean, if I put something against it, and if you saw I was cutting with the paper, I did go up that high on the blade, it cut. So yeah, that's a testament to the heat treat. It's a testament to the quality of the blade. I'd say this is more than good enough for somebody doing test cutting with. And I think that if it's something that you'd be interested in, like in terms of a different dowel to use other than like an oxtail dowel or, you know, willow leaf saber, like this is a nice one to get your hands on. It's typical for the time period, Ming time period. It's something that General Qi Ji had adopted for his troops, and in fact, his own personal arms, he has one of these. You can look it up for yourself so you can see, which, by the way, is just for a little bit of trivia. There's a certain sword form called Qi which is associated with him. And I'm not exactly sure how true that is, considering that Qi is a straight sword form, but he trained his troops to use these things, and his own personal arms include one of these things. I don't see a Jian attributed to him, so I just find that funny. But yeah, going a bit off topic. As far as this particular sword goes, for the asking price and the build quality that they're offering for it, how good the blade is, the fact that they're offering, like, again, this is the second steel option, which is the cheaper option, because the other option would be folded steel. That makes this a very utilitarian type of sword. And considering the abuse I did to it, how well it fared when it could have been so much worse, I'd say this is a really nice piece. Is it going to supplant the Yanling Dao in terms of my favorite Dao from LK Chen? No, but that's only because of personal preference. I will say this though, this grip felt more comfortable in the hand than the Yanling did. Now granted, I like the way the Yanling feels overall. I have little problem wielding it, but I noticed that gripping this one, the handguard here is smoother. It's not a straight rectangle shape like on the Yanling Dao. This one is a bit more rounded where your fingers go, so it's a more comfortable grip. Whereas the Yanling, it's pretty much square all the way around, and so it's going to take a bit of getting used to. That being said, since it's not a super thick block, and because of the wrapping itself, I don't really have a problem using it. And who knows, LK Chen are constantly updating their line. I wouldn't be surprised if later models of their Dao happen to follow this design a bit more in terms of comfort. Though I will say that the grip on the Yanling Dao is historically accurate. So, like, overall, I just happen to like the feel and the shape and the overall look of the Yanling, so that one's more of my favorite, but this is not a bad piece at all. And considering the abuse it was able to put up with, you can't go wrong with it. I mean, as far as if you're looking for a unique Dao to practice with and to do test cutting with. Just don't hit treated wood with it. That's not what this is for. Anyway, I hope you guys were able to get something out of this review. I once again thank LK Chen for sending me the sample piece. It was fun to test. It was fun to work with. I have other reviews that I need to hurry up and do. I know there are other LK Chen swords that were sent to me that I need to do, and I still need to finish my review on the Scott Rodell one as well. So yeah, I know I'm behind, but I'm trying to get back on track with that. Here's hoping that life will give me more time to do these. So, hope you guys got something out of it. Hope you guys got some entertainment from it. And I will catch you guys later.